The sun hung low over the red cracked surface of Vara 7, casting long shadows across the empty wasteland. Dust swirled in the hot wind, and the skeletal remains of metal structures told stories of a world long abandoned. Arlen, a human scavenger with a rough jacket and worn boots, trudged across the barren plains, his eyes scanning for anything useful. He had seen little life here in his years, just dust and echoes. That's why the sound of a soft whimper made him freeze. He followed the sound to a rocky outcrop. Beneath a jagged stone, he saw a small creature curled in on itself. Its body was covered in soft scales that shimmered faintly in the sunlight, and its eyes glowed like tiny stars, filled with fear and confusion. The cub looked weak, trembling, and alone. Arlen's first instinct was caution. He had been warned about alien creatures, even small ones. They could be dangerous. But there was something about the cub's gaze that stopped him. It was not hostile. It was lost. Arlen crouched slowly, holding out his hand. "Hey, it's okay. I won't hurt you," he said in a low voice, unsure if the cub understood him. The creature tilted its head, sniffed the air, and then whimpered again. Arlen noticed its tiny limbs were scraped, its tail flicking nervously. Without thinking much further, he reached into his pack and pulled out a piece of dried protein bar. He broke it into small bits and held it out. The cub sniffed cautiously, then with a tiny nudge took the food. Its tail wagged slightly, a spark of trust forming. He sat down on the rock, letting the cub approach. "You must be starving," he murmured, scratching behind its ear. The creature leaned into his hand, purring softly in a sound unlike anything Arlen had ever heard. It was a strange mix of hums and clicks, almost musical. Arlen smiled despite himself. "I'll call you Leary," he said, naming the cub after the distant star cluster he had seen as a child. Leary's glowing eyes seemed to brighten at the sound of her new name, as if she understood she was no longer alone. Over the next few days, Arlen made a small shelter for Leary in the ruins of an old building. He scavenged scraps of metal to build a barrier and patched holes in the walls to keep out the wind. He gave her water from his canteen and more food, watching as she slowly grew stronger. Leary's scales began to shine more brightly in the sunlight, and her little legs grew sturdy. She followed him everywhere, staying close, purring and chirping happily whenever he spoke. But life in the wasteland was not easy. On the fourth day, Arlen spotted movement at the edge of the ruins. A group of scavengers had caught sight of Leary. They were rough, armed with makeshift weapons, and their eyes glinted with greed. "A human with an alien cub?" one sneered. "That could fetch a good price." Arlen's heart pounded. He had no weapons, just his courage and his bond with Leary. "Stay behind me," he whispered, moving between the cub and the intruders. Leary crouched, tail flicking, but did not attack. She trusted him completely. The scavengers laughed and stepped closer. "Hand it over or we take it by force," one demanded. Arlen shook his head. "No, she's not yours. Leave her alone." The men charged, but Leary's instincts kicked in. With a sudden burst of energy, she darted in front of Arlen, her tiny body glowing bright. The light startled the scavengers. One of them stumbled and fell, the others hesitated, unsure of what they were seeing. Arlen realized the cub's glow was more than pretty, it was a defense, a warning. Seizing the moment, Arlen grabbed Leary and ran. They darted through the narrow ruins and into the dusty plains. The scavengers shouted behind them, but Arlen was faster, driven by the need to protect the small life he had grown to care for. Leary's glow lit their path, almost as if guiding them away from danger. By the time the sun dipped below the horizon, they had vanished into the shadows of the wasteland. That night, under the dim light of Vara 7's twin moons, Arlen built a small fire. Leary curled up beside him, purring and occasionally nudging his hand. He watched her and felt something he hadn't in a long time: hope. "You're safe now," he whispered, "as long as I'm here." Leary's soft glow pulsed in response, almost like a heartbeat. Days turned into weeks, and the bond between human and alien deepened. Arlen taught Leary to hunt small creatures and find water. In return, Leary showed surprising intelligence, learning quickly, mimicking his movements, and even guiding him to hidden caches of supplies he would have missed on his own. They became a team, each relying on the other. Word of the unusual pair began to spread across the wasteland. Rumors reached distant outposts of a human protecting a glowing alien cub. Some sought to capture Leary for power, others to study her. Arlen knew it was only a matter of time before they were found again. But for now he focused on the present, keeping Leary safe, teaching her, and feeling the strange, deep joy of watching life grow under his care. One evening, as the wind howled and dust swirled around their makeshift camp, Arlen looked down at Leary, her small form glowing softly in the firelight. He whispered, "I don't know what the future holds, but whatever comes we face it together." Leary blinked, her glowing eyes meeting his, full of trust and something like understanding. And in that moment, on a dead world that had once known only silence, life had returned. Not just survival but a bond that could change everything. Two souls, human and alien, standing together against a universe that had once abandoned them. The night on Vara 7 was quiet, but Arlen did not sleep. Leary, now stronger and more confident, curled beside him, her scales glinting softly in the light of the twin moons. Arlen knew they could not stay. The wasteland was dangerous and sooner or later someone would come looking for the glowing cub. He had heard rumors of the Stellar Federation, a group that would pay a fortune for a living alien of her kind. He could not risk it. At dawn he packed what little he had. Food rations, water, and a small blaster for emergencies. Leary followed him closely, her tail brushing against his legs, her glowing eyes alert. Together, they made their way to an old landing pad Arlen had found during his scavenging. A small starship, rusted and barely functional, lay hidden under metal panels. It would not fly far but it could get them off the planet and into space. Arlen spent hours repairing the engines, his hands black with grease. Leary watched, her small claws tracing the grooves of the ship's hull curiously. Occasionally she reached out with her glowing light, illuminating parts he could not see. Arlen laughed softly. "You're smarter than you look," he said. Leary chirped in response, a sound that made him smile despite the tension. By mid-afternoon the ship was ready. The engines roared to life, coughing smoke and fire, but steady enough to lift off. Arlen helped Leary climb into the small cabin. She looked nervous but excited, her glowing scales pulsating like a heartbeat. Arlen felt a pang of emotion. For years he had wandered the wasteland alone, but now he had a companion, a friend, and something even more precious, a bond that could not be broken. The ship lifted into the sky, dust and rocks scattering below. Arlen set a course for Orelise, a nearby space station rumored to have traders and mechanics. The journey through the thin atmosphere was rough, but they cleared the planet's gravity and drifted into the blackness of space. Leary pressed her small face to the viewport, marveling at the stars. She had never seen anything so vast. "It's beautiful," Arlen said softly. Leary chirped happily, her glow matching the light of distant suns. The first challenge came quickly. An asteroid field loomed ahead, massive rocks tumbling through space. Arlen's hands gripped the controls tightly. "Hold on, Leary," he said. The ship jolted as it weaved through the rocks. Leary's light pulsed rapidly, almost as if sensing danger. Her tail flicked and she let out a sharp chirp. Arlen followed her instinct, twisting the ship at the last moment to avoid a collision. They cleared the field, hearts pounding, the silence of space returning. When they reached Orelise, the station was crowded and noisy. Traders shouted prices for alien goods, merchants sold rare metals, and smugglers lurked in shadowed corners. Arlen kept Leary hidden under a blanket at first, worried someone might recognize her. But as they moved through the station, Leary's curiosity got the better of her. She peered out, her glowing eyes scanning the crowds. Arlen noticed people staring, whispering, pointing. He tightened his grip on her small paw. A sudden commotion erupted near one of the docks. A group of agents had entered, scanning the crowd. One of them, a tall figure in a dark suit, froze when he saw Leary. He stepped closer, speaking into a communicator. Arlen realized this was the same group that had tracked rumors of her heritage. Someone who knew her lineage and wanted her captured. His mind raced. He had no time to run and no allies here. Before he could act, Leary's glow flared brightly, illuminating the dock. People gasped and stepped back. The agents hesitated. Leary chirped sharply, her small claws scratching at the floor. She was ready to defend them if needed. Arlen grabbed her and sprinted toward a maintenance corridor he had spotted earlier. The agents shouted, but the crowd blocked their path. By the time they reached the end of the corridor, they were free. Arlen leaned against the wall, breathing heavily. Leary pressed close, her glow dimming as she relaxed. They spent the night hiding in an abandoned storage bay. Arlen examined Leary closely. She was changing rapidly. Her claws were longer, her tail stronger, and her scales now shimmered with a faint pattern he had never noticed before. He realized she was growing at an unnatural speed. "You're not just a cub," he murmured. "You're something more." Leary looked up at him, eyes glowing softly as if understanding. The next morning, Arlen decided it was time to leave Orelise. They needed a place far from hunters, far from anyone who might want to control Leary. He plotted a course for the Zithra cluster, a remote region of space with unclaimed worlds. The journey would take weeks, maybe months, but it was worth the risk. As they left the station behind, Lyri stretched her small wings. "Do you think I can really fly someday?" she asked, her voice small but curious. Arlen smiled, placing a hand on her head. "If you keep growing, I think you'll soar higher than any star." Lyri chirped happily and curled against him. Together they drifted through space, facing dangers from meteors, pirates, and the unknown, but also discovering new wonders. Gas clouds that glowed like rainbow oceans, planets with floating oceans, and stars that pulsed like living hearts. Over time, Arlen taught Lyri how to navigate, how to read star charts, and how to trust her instincts. Lyri, in turn, guided him in ways he could not understand, sensing hazards, predicting movements, and glowing brighter whenever danger approached. They became more than protector and cub, they became a team, a family in the vast, endless universe. But the shadows of the past were never far behind. Messages from bounty hunters, rumors of her royal heritage, and whispers of a galaxy-wide empire loomed like dark clouds. Arlen knew the journey was just beginning. Lyri was special and someone, somewhere would come for her. But for now they had each other, and the stars stretched endlessly before them, full of danger, mystery, and hope. As Lyri lay on the cabin floor, wings tucked, eyes glowing softly, Arlen whispered, "No matter what comes, I won't let anything happen to you." Lyri chirped in reply, a small, glowing heartbeat of trust. Together, human and alien, they sailed across the stars, a bond stronger than fear, ready for the challenges of a universe that had never seen anything like them. Lyri had grown noticeably during the journey through space. Her small cub-like body was no longer fragile. Her legs were strong, her tail thick, and faint patterns glimmered across her scales. She could jump higher, move faster, and even extend tiny, almost invisible wings. Arlen noticed it with a mix of awe and worry. Something about her was unusual, more than he had realized when he first found her on Vara 7. One quiet night aboard their ship, as stars streaked past in the darkness, Lyri stirred from her sleep and let out a low, melodic hum. Arlen leaned over her, concerned. Her glow was brighter than usual, casting patterns across the cabin walls. He watched as her eyes rolled back slightly, and for a moment she seemed somewhere else, somewhere far away. Suddenly she spoke in a voice he had never heard before, soft but commanding. "The Celestra, they wait." Arlen froze. "The Celestra? What's that, Lyri?" She opened her eyes and blinked at him, her voice returning to the small, curious tone he had known. I saw them," she said, her tail flicking nervously. "My family. The Empire. They want me." Arlen swallowed hard. He had never imagined that Lyri belonged to anything like a royal family. He had thought she was just a lost cub, a strange alien left alone. But now the truth was clear, she was special. Her rapid growth, her abilities, even the strange glow, all pointed to a heritage far beyond any ordinary creature. He took a deep breath and opened the small data pad he had scavenged at Orelise. "If you are from an empire," he said carefully, "maybe we can find out more. There might be records, histories, something that tells us who you really are." Lyri climbed onto his lap, her small claws tapping on the pad curiously. When he activated the search, the pad revealed old star maps, encrypted messages, and faded holographic records. Arlen's eyes widened. Among the archives he found references to a civilization spread across 1,000 worlds, a lineage of rulers called the Celestra. "They abandoned you?" Arlen asked softly, looking at Lyri. The cub's glow dimmed slightly, her small body curling against him. "Yes," she whispered. "There was danger. My family, enemies tried to take control. They sent me away to survive. But I was meant to return." Arlen felt a heavy weight in his chest. He had protected her for years, risked his life in the wasteland, and now he realized that Lyri was destined for something far greater than he had imagined. He did not know how she could survive in the world of empires and politics, but he knew he had to help her. "Then we face it together," he said. "I won't leave you. I promise." Over the next days, Lyri began showing more of her inherited powers. Her glow could illuminate entire rooms, her wings could now lift her slightly off the floor, and she could sense the intentions of those around her, even through the ship's hull. She was learning fast, but she also seemed to carry the weight of responsibility. "I feel a pull," she said one night, her voice small but trembling. "Somewhere far away, my people need me." Arlen tried to comfort her. "You don't have to go anywhere until you're ready. You're still growing, still learning. And I'm not letting anyone hurt you." Lyri's eyes met his, glowing softly. She seemed to understand that he had been her protector, her family, for the past 20 years. But danger loomed. Messages from the Stellar Federation continued to track their path. Old hunters, sensing her growing power, were attempting to intercept them. Arlen realized that Lyri's enemies were not just mercenaries, they were organized, skilled, and determined to capture her for her lineage. They had already lost years of their plan when she had vanished as a cub, and now that she was emerging as her true self, they would stop at nothing. Arlen and Lyri prepared for the possibility of confrontation. He taught her basic defensive maneuvers, how to anticipate attacks, and how to use her glowing patterns to confuse opponents. Lyri, in turn, helped him understand the way she sensed danger, her instincts guiding him through space hazards they had never noticed before. Together they became more than human and alien, they became a team ready for anything the universe could throw at them. Then one day Lyri had a vision she could not ignore. Stars shifted in her mind, revealing a massive empire, planets interconnected by trade and power. She saw towering cities, floating fortresses, and armies prepared to fight. Her ancestors, rulers of the Celestra, awaited her arrival. She felt both fear and duty. She would have to face them, claim her place, and protect her people. Arlen noticed her tense, glowing brighter than usual. "It's time, isn't it?" he asked quietly. Lyri nodded. "Yes, but I don't know if I'm ready." He put a hand on her head. "You've been ready all along. You survived the wasteland. You survived space. You've grown stronger every day. Your family, your empire, they will see that too." The weeks that followed were tense. They traveled toward the edge of the Zithra cluster, a region of space known for isolated worlds and secret pathways. Arlen used all his knowledge of star systems and old charts to avoid patrols. Lyri's abilities guided them past detection fields, strange gravitational pockets, and even asteroid storms. Each day Lyri's strength grew, her wings stretching further, her glow brighter. Finally, as they approached the outer edge of Celestra space, Lyri perched on the ship's viewport, staring at the vast empire that stretched across countless stars. She was no longer a cub. She was a leader, a princess, and soon to be a queen. Arlen watched her, pride and worry filling his chest. "Whatever happens next," he said, "we face it together. You are not alone." Lyri's glow pulsed almost like a heartbeat. "I know," she whispered. "And I will not forget you, Arlen. You saved my life when no one else could. Now, I must face my destiny." And as their ship moved closer to the heart of the Celestra Empire, the two knew the hardest part of their journey had only just begun. Lyri's past, her family, and the empire that awaited her would test everything they had learned, but together they were ready. The distant stars stretched endlessly as Arlen guided the ship toward the heart of the Celestra Empire. Lyri sat on the viewport ledge, her glowing scales bright enough to light the cabin. She had grown taller now, her wings strong and folded neatly against her back. No longer a cub, she radiated power and presence, yet her eyes still held the warmth and trust she felt for Arlen. As they entered the outskirts of the Empire, massive space stations and elegant starships drifted past, shimmering like jewels in the void. Lyri's heart pounded. She had seen glimpses of this through visions, but now she was here. Her ancestors, rulers of thousands of worlds, awaited her return. She felt both fear and resolve. "Arlen, they will expect me to lead," she whispered. "You've led long before this," Arlen said softly. "You survived the wasteland. You survived space. You've grown stronger than anyone could imagine. You belong there, Lyri. And I'll be with you." Lyri's glow pulsed gently, a sign of her gratitude. The first challenge came before they even landed. Patrol ships detected their approach and moved to intercept. Arlen and Lyri held their course. "Trust me," he said. Lyri nodded, letting her instincts guide the ship. Her glowing light flared as the patrols drew near, creating illusions in the void of space. Ships swerved away, confused and unsure. Arlen marveled at her power, but he also knew this was only a hint of what she could truly do. They landed on the grandest station of the Empire, a floating palace larger than any city Arlen had ever seen. The docking bay was filled with tall, regal figures in flowing robes, armored guards, and beings from countless species. Whispers traveled through the crowd. Lyri's glowing scales drew every eye. She could sense their awe, their curiosity, and their fear. Arlen stood beside her, steady and calm, knowing his presence reassured her. A regal figure approached, tall with shimmering silver skin and eyes like molten gold. He bowed deeply. "You are Lyri of the Celestra," he said, his voice echoing through the hall. "We have awaited your return." Lyri stepped forward, her glowing light soft but strong. "I am Lyri," she said. "I have come to serve the Empire and protect its people." Her voice carried authority, but also the gentleness she had learned from Arlen. Immediately, challenges arose. Some factions in the Empire doubted her. They whispered that she had been raised by a human, that she might be weak or influenced by outsiders. During the first council meeting, leaders from distant worlds questioned her decisions, her strategies, even her loyalty. Lyri listened carefully, her glow dimming slightly as she weighed their words. Arlen watched from behind, knowing that her resolve would be tested like never before. The tension reached its peak when a faction tried to stage a coup during a council assembly. Alarms blared and guards rushed to secure the area. Lyri did not panic. Instead, she stepped forward, her glowing body illuminating the chamber. With a series of precise movements, she controlled the light to disorient the attackers, giving guards time to restrain them. The entire assembly watched in stunned silence. Arlen's chest swelled with pride. The cub he had rescued on a dead planet had grown into a true leader. In the following days, Lyri demonstrated her intelligence, compassion, and strength. She visited worlds within the Empire, listening to citizens, mediating disputes, and showing mercy to those who had opposed her. News of her deeds spread quickly, solidifying her reputation as not only a rightful heir but a ruler who could unite the thousand worlds. Arlen remained close, advising her when needed, but allowing her to shine on her own. Despite the success, Lyri never forgot her past. She often visited a quiet observation deck, staring at the stars and speaking softly to Arlen. "Do you think I could have done this without you?" she asked. "You already could have," he said, smiling. "I just helped you see it. You were always meant for this." Lyri glowed warmly, pressing a small head against his hand. The bond between human and alien, formed in a dusty wasteland and strengthened across countless light years, remained unbroken. The Empire began to flourish under her guidance. Conflicts were resolved through diplomacy and understanding rather than war. Citizens marveled at her wisdom and kindness, and even her enemies respected her courage. She showed that strength was not only in power but in empathy, and that leadership could be a force for hope rather than fear. One evening, as Lyri overlooked the galaxy from her palace balcony, Arlen stood beside her. "You've done what no one believed possible," he said. "You've become an empress of 1,000 worlds, and yet, you're still the same Lyri who trusted a human when she was a cub." Lyri's glow pulsed softly in reply. "And I will never forget that. I'm strong because of the bond we share. Humanity gave me courage and I will carry it with me into every star." She spread her wings slightly, catching the light of distant suns. For a moment she looked like a living constellation, a symbol of hope for the Empire. The night was calm, but the universe remained full of challenges. Lyri knew there would be threats, uprisings and trials to come. Yet she faced them with unwavering resolve, her human-taught compassion guiding her decisions. With Arlen by her side, she would protect the Empire, its people, and the ideals they both believed in. And so, the cub once abandoned on a barren planet had returned, not just as a survivor but as a beacon. A leader who carried the lessons of humanity, the wisdom of her ancestors, and the courage to shape the destiny of countless worlds. The Empire had welcomed her, but it was her heart, and her bond with Arlen, that made her truly unstoppable. Lyri stood on the balcony of her palace, the galaxy spread before her like a sea of stars. Her glow filled the chamber, soft and steady, a reminder of the journey that had brought her here. From a fragile cub abandoned on a lifeless planet to the Empress of 1,000 worlds, her path had been shaped by courage, trust, and the guidance of the human who had saved her life, Arlen. She turned to him, a small smile playing across her lips. "It's strange," she said softly, "to think of how far we've come. I was so small, so lost, and now I lead an empire." Arlen chuckled, leaning against the railing beside her. "You've always had this inside you. I just helped you see it." His eyes reflected the countless stars they had traveled, the dangers they had faced together, and the bond they had formed. "And you've taught me something too. Humanity matters. Care matters. Even a small act of kindness can change everything." Lyri's glow pulsed warmly. She remembered the wasteland, the fear, and the hope she had felt in Arlen's hands. Every choice he had made to protect her, feed her, and guide her had left a mark. She had carried that with her through space, through danger, through doubt. Now, as an empress, she knew she could honor that bond by ruling with compassion. The empire had begun to change under her leadership. Worlds that had once fought or ignored each other now traded openly, shared knowledge, and supported one another. Leary encouraged cultural exchanges, education programs, and peaceful negotiations. Even the factions that had once doubted her now respected her. She ruled not through fear or force, but by showing understanding and empathy. Her subjects saw her not only as a ruler, but as a protector, someone who would stand for them even in the darkest times. Arlen watched all of this with quiet pride. He saw how Leary listened to her people, how she used her abilities to help rather than harm, and how she inspired loyalty without ever demanding it. He remembered the small cub he had rescued, trembling under a rock, and he could hardly believe she had grown into such a remarkable leader. One day, a group of ambassadors arrived from a distant cluster, bringing news of unrest and conflict. Many empires might have sent armies, but Leary chose diplomacy. She summoned the leaders, listened to their grievances, and mediated a solution. Her calm presence, her glowing form, and the wisdom she shared led to a peaceful agreement that surprised even the most hardened diplomats. Word of her approach spread quickly, reinforcing her reputation across the galaxy. As months passed, Leary continued to build bridges between worlds, always keeping the lessons of her early life close. She remembered fear, vulnerability, and reliance on others. She remembered Arlen's hands, guiding and steadying her, and she sought to give others the same hope and protection she had once received. The Empire flourished, not only in power but in unity and understanding. One evening, Leary and Arlen stood together on a quiet observation deck, looking out at a cluster of newly allied worlds. Leary's glow shimmered softly, reflecting in Arlen's eyes. "Do you ever regret saving me?" she asked, her voice gentle. Arlen shook his head, smiling. "Not for a second. You've shown me that one life can make a difference in the universe. You've shown me that compassion matters. And you've changed the galaxy in ways no one else could." Leary's glow brightened slightly. "And I wouldn't be here without you. You taught me to trust, to fight, to care. I can rule an empire, face threats, and inspire thousands, but it all began with your kindness." She leaned close, resting her head against his shoulder. "I will never forget that." As the stars spun silently around them, Leary thought of the future. She imagined generations learning from the examples she set, civilizations working together, and the universe growing safer because someone had chosen compassion over fear. Her story, once a tale of survival, had become a legacy, one that could inspire countless others to act with courage and care. Arlen placed a hand on her glowing head, feeling the steady warmth and power within her. "Your empire is safe, Leary. You've done more than survive, you've created hope." Leary spread her wings slightly, catching the starlight, and let out a soft, melodic hum. It was a sound of peace, of trust, and of a bond that had lasted through years of hardship and travel. She had come full circle, from a cub needing protection to an empress who could protect thousands. And as the galaxy stretched endlessly before them, filled with distant suns, planets, and the quiet hum of life, Leary knew that this was only the beginning. The empire, the worlds, and the lives she had touched would carry the lessons of her journey forward. Compassion, courage, and trust could ripple across space and time, changing everything. For Arlen and Leary, the bond forged in a dusty wasteland had become the foundation for an empire that would last for generations. One human's kindness had saved a cub, and in turn, that cub had returned as a leader who reshaped the stars. Together, they had proven that even in the vast, endless universe, compassion could conquer fear, hope could conquer despair, and a single act of care could create a legacy that stretched across 1,000 worlds. The galaxy was theirs to protect, to guide, and to inspire. And Leary, glowing brightly beside the human who had saved her life, knew that her legacy was not only about power, it was about heart. And that heart would shine forever.